So, Excellencies, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time to start. We run a little bit late already now. So I would like to thank each one of you for attending today's hearing on freedom of religion or belief in Indonesia. I hold this meeting in Parliament's Working Group of Freedom of Religion or Belief at the European Parliament Student of Ahmadis and Christians Solidarity Worldwide. I would like to thank Ben and Farrer from these organizations for bringing this delegation of experts. At today's hearing, Ben Rogers will introduce his extensive report on religious freedom in Indonesia. Ben is a seasoned researcher who regularly contributes to international media, including the Wall Street Journal, International Herald Tribune, and Sky and Al Jazeera. Accompanied by an Indonesian interfaith delegation from diverse religious and professional backgrounds. Before I hand over to Ben to introduce both his report and his delegation, I would like to welcome Ambassador Holger Seno. I hope that my pronounced right is a Finnish pronunciation, but anyway, you are welcome. We look forward to your thoughts on how the government perceives the challenge outlined in recent reports and as to what it can do to safeguard its pluralism and to protect those at risk due to their belief or disbelief. Indonesia has a long tradition of pluralism and interreligious harmony. This model of pluralism is well known and has served as a benchmark to other predominantly Muslim countries. Maintaining a climate of freedom for all requires hard work, and Indonesia increasingly faces domestic and external challenges to its model. Recent reports by the PER Forum suggest that Indonesia faces very high levels of social hostilities involving religions and has very high government restrictions of religion. US Commission on International Religious Freedom equally noted that there is in Indonesia a new culture of intolerance which threatens religious minorities. We hope that today's presentations and the subsequent exchange of views will enable us all to better understand some of these challenges, and I invite you to consider how these challenges could be addressed. And now I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Ben Rogers, and I think your presentation is welcome.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Takula, thank you so much for hosting this event and for those introductory remarks. Can I also thank His Excellency the Ambassador and other representatives of the Embassy of Indonesia for coming to this event, and I very much welcome the opportunity to engage with the Embassy and the Government of Indonesia on these issues. Just before I present the report, and I appear to have lost the PowerPoint, but maybe this is a good opportunity just briefly to introduce the delegation that you will hear from, which, as Mr. Takula says, is an interfaith delegation, thank you so much, representing different religious communities. I think they will introduce themselves in more depth when they speak, but we have representatives of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, the Shi'a community, the Communion of Churches in Indonesia, the main Protestant body, the Abdurrahman Wahid Center for Interfaith Dialogue and the Wahid Institute, and a representative of the Satara Institute, who is also a Catholic priest and formerly a representative of the Catholic Bishops' Conference. And it's also a pleasure to be working together with the Ahmadiyya community in the United Kingdom, Mr. Farid Ahmed, who will say a few words after the delegation have spoken. May I begin, in my short time today, I want to ask and attempt to briefly answer two questions. Why did I write this report, and what are its findings? And I want to say from the outset that the main reason I wrote this report is because I consider myself a friend of Indonesia. I deeply admire the great tradition in Indonesia of religious pluralism, harmony, tolerance, religious freedom. The values upon which the country was founded in Pancasila, the nation's motto, unity in diversity, and also Indonesia's remarkable transition from the years of authoritarian rule to a thriving democracy with a thriving civil society and press. And those are things that I deeply admire and applaud about Indonesia. But I have felt over the last few years that I've been working on Indonesia that those achievements of this great nation are increasingly under threat from rising religious intolerance. Year on year, and the statistics show this, the number of incidents of violations of religious freedom have increased year on year. The number of cases and human stories that I hear when I travel to Indonesia have increased both in number and in severity. And I felt that in this year, as Indonesia faces both parliamentary and presidential elections, it was important to ring a warning bell for the sake of Indonesia itself and for all who consider ourselves friends of Indonesia, that those great values of Indonesia are under threat if action isn't taken. If I can move the PowerPoint, I want to just share some images to illustrate in a very human way the kind of stories that are documented. This report is the result of first-hand research, not academic study sitting in London or elsewhere in Europe, but on-the-ground first-hand research, interviewing victims of these violations, actually experiencing for myself first-hand some of these situations, and I'll come back to that in a moment. So let me sketch out with these images and with what I say the scale of the challenge. Firstly, as far as the Christian community are concerned, an increasing number of churches being forced to close down, including churches that have been legally registered for many years, licensed and in existence, and previously had no problems with their own local community or with the government, in recent times have been under increasing pressure to close. Many of these churches, or at least some of these churches, the congregations are forced to worship in the street outside the church because they're not allowed to use their locked church building. And I have stood among the congregation on a Sunday morning as they've worshipped in the street outside their church and been surrounded by a mob of extremists shouting, kill the Christians, Christians get out, to prevent the mosque from being destroyed. But they're not allowed, well, they could come out, but they wouldn't be able to go back in again. And when I went there, I had this strange situation of having a conversation with them across the fence of their mosque. I wasn't allowed in, and they couldn't come out. And that's their situation today. The Ahmadi community in Lombok as well, 8 years on from violence in Lombok, living in displacement camps in very concerning conditions. They took me to visit the village that they had lived in, which was burnt out, and again, no resolution to their situation. These are the conditions they're living in a transit camp in Lombok. These are just some images of a more hopeful note. I don't believe that it is too late for Indonesia, and that's why I've written the report now. I believe Indonesia does have still this great tradition of tolerance and pluralism among the silent majority. But my concern is that intolerance is becoming mainstreamed, and unless both the government and the silent majority stand up and speak out, the future could be bleak. But if action is taken, the future could be very bright for Indonesia. These are some rather lighter photographs with Ahmadi children in Lombok. And of course, it isn't only people of religion who are facing these challenges. This young man, Alexander Ahn, was given a 2.5-year jail sentence because he declared himself an atheist. I went to visit him in prison twice, and the second time that I went to visit him, he gave me this letter written on a scrap of paper and asked me to smuggle it out. And it's a message of peace and tolerance and pluralism that I think encapsulates the desire of the majority of the people of Indonesia and is an appeal to everyone. I should acknowledge and pay tribute to the Indonesian authorities that I think one very good thing is that it is possible for me to visit people in prison, and that can't be said of every country in the world. I was able to visit this young man twice. I was able to visit Tajul Muluk, a Shia cleric in jail as well. And I welcome the fact, although I would argue they shouldn't have been in prison in the first place, but it's still good that I can have access to them. Drawing to a close, one hopeful sign also is that there are some of the leaders of some of the radical groups, such as FPI, the Front Pembela Islamic Defenders Front, which is a group that has led many of the attacks on different communities. Some FBI leaders have actually had a change of heart and got out of their radical extremist activities, and in a few cases actually are working to counter extremism. This man is a former leader of the FBI in Bandung, and if you look in the back page, inside that page of the report, I quote him and his appeal to the world to help Indonesia address these challenges. Coming back to Indonesia's tradition of pluralism, in the centre of the capital city, Jakarta, sits the main Catholic cathedral, right opposite the largest mosque in Southeast Asia. And that's a great symbol of all that is good about Indonesia, that different religious communities can sit side by side. I'm told that even on occasions the mosque and the cathedral share a parking lot. And I would hope that Indonesia can get back to that vision of sharing parking lots between religions rather than attacking places of worship. Another thing I would say that is positive about Indonesia is that because it has made this transition to democracy, there is the space within Indonesia for the different communities of Indonesia to speak out for themselves within the country, as well as friends of Indonesia speaking out internationally. And so there are protests taking place in Jakarta on a regular basis to try to wake up the authorities to these challenges. And my final slide is this message: save peaceful Indonesia, pray with GKI Yasmin at one of the churches that has been closed, for unity in diversity. The great thing about these demonstrations is that the different communities are coming together, Christians, Ahmadis, Shias, and others, to speak with one voice, and that's what this delegation also shows. In conclusion, let me close by saying that I believe that in terms of my findings, I have 3 headline findings. The first is that these issues are in danger of becoming a nationwide challenge. I used to think that it was confined to particular...
Ahmad Suedi, Mauritius.
Thank you, Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, especially for Excellency Ambassador of Indonesia here. I would like to just highlight some issues from this report. And I myself have researched not part of this report. So I would like to give some answer why and how this happened in Indonesia. Indonesia actually for a long time to be more of peaceful and also interreligious and interethnic harmony in the world. And right now it's third or fourth of biggest democracy country in the world. And also I myself have to protect my country and my nation as Indonesian. So if I can quote what one cousin Churchill said, that right or wrong is my country. But I would like to share with you on the situation in Indonesia, not only special in Indonesia actually, also in other world, which is rising intolerance and also violence and based on the religion. First is I think why there is the contradiction in Indonesia right now between the liberation of the politics and economy and protecting the culture and religion. All people can set up the political party every day, but don't set up interpretation of religion which is not follow the mainstream. So the problem is the government intervene of this fact. Why? Because since 2005, our president made a statement in the front of the conference of Ulama Council that the government will follow what the Ulama Council fatwa and then will enforce what the fatwa from the Ulama Council about the interpretation of religion. The impact from that statement and then there are many I can say not only violence and but also the mainstreaming intolerant, which is the intolerant to be regulation. We have right now 25 local government that have the regulation ban of the certain sects or certain beliefs. Most are Ahmadi, but also there are many sects. Because Ulama Council in the event that my president makes statement, released two important fatwa that forbidden for ban of the Ahmadi and also pluralism, liberalism and secularism. So this is impact to policy of the government, not only central government but also to local government. The second impact from this policy is about minority. The government defend the minority as like conventional minority like Hindu, Buddhist, Catholic, Protestant, and so on. So the government only serve the minority which is on the formal mean. But what happened is to the spare sect which is Ulama Council give fatwa that this is non-mainstream like Ahmadi and Shi'i. So this is not only government not protect them from the attacking of the radical group and also from the regulation. And another thing is about law enforcement. Very weak for enforcement to protect the minority, not in conventional minority. So if there is a report that in Indonesia, the number of church more than UK, it means the formal minority, but there are many local Christian and local Ahmadi and also local belief is under pressure. Law enforcement, the police, the attorney, and also the just like under pressure of the, can say, ulama council and also the radical group. Once I asked to the very elite police, why the police not protect the minority from the attacking and violence of the small, very small group radical. He said, the police, the elite police said, who protect us? Who protect police? So this is like, there are no political protection to the apparatus of the law enforcement by the government, especially by the president. So the police also in the threat of the case of violence, for example, the journalist asked to the police how to, what do you think about this attack on violence? The police said, we waiting for the fatwa. This is mainstream or not mainstream. Then depend on the fatwa. I think we can discuss more about some situation, and generally in Indonesia still, what we say, harmony is still going on, but the problem is like in and in policy government especially. I hope that this situation can be agenda for the next government, and also it is why we feel that this is very important to discuss, not only in our country but also in the world, because this situation not only in Indonesia, like we remember about Rohingya in Myanmar, for example. Thank you very much.
The paper are punchy. You're welcome.
Thank you, Chairperson. Distinguished guests, I would like to thank you for your time and your encouragement by coming here, especially the ambassador and representative from Indonesia. Let me open my presentation by saying that in general, our situation in Indonesia is still good and we still live peacefully. But recently, the situation is quite worried because intolerance is increasing. Today, I stand here on behalf of my brother and sister in Indonesia who have troubles because of their faith. And the situation become more worse because in some case, a few of government officers doesn't protect the minority right, even though it's very clear in our constitution. I think you already know that in Indonesia, the persecution is not just happen to the Christian community, but also to the Ahmadiyya community, Shi'a, indigenous, and others, like I already mentioned in Ben's presentation. Some of people's questioning if all this happened if all this happened in Indonesia, why we not talk in our home? Yes, it is true. We are talking too much, but there is no implementation. And someone also say, you know, I'm questioning your nationalism. Why you talk to other international community and why you not talk here? I think we are in international global society right now. What happened in one country actually also have an impact in other country. And as an Indonesian, I'm a part of this delegation because I love my country very much. And I want to see in the future, we will not have this kind of things anymore. I'm very ashamed to discuss of these things with you, because with the story of my great-great-grandfathers, actually in very last time we are live peacefully. Few of our church, because I come from North Sumatra, near the Aceh, and 12 of our church closed already by the Aceh government. But from the story that I have, few of our church actually built together with the Muslim and Christian society. But right now it's quite be worried because there is a fatwa issued by Ulama Council even to say Christmas is forbidden. So I cannot imagine anymore in the future what will be the legacy to the next generation. So some of my Christian fellow also questioning why you do this kind of things. It must be clear that I stand here first as I'm a Indonesia, but also I believe justice is also a part of responsibility to faith community. I quote one of our national leader, national hero, name is Johannes Lemena. This one at the time, there's questions. Sir, what is the recipe to be a good Christian and also accepted in heaven? So he said, you know, as a good citizen in the heaven, it must be you also a good citizen in Indonesia. How come you can enter heaven if you never care about citizenship situation in your country? So I'm glad to say that we are a Christian in Indonesia, not really think that we are in a bad situation right now.
So, thank you, Dr. Panshin. And then our next speaker is Mr. Mahmoud Mubarak Ahmad. Welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to add some information in view of Ahmadi as a victim of persecutions. Ahmadis came to our countries at 1925, before our country established. Some of earlier Ahmadis, side by side, make with the others, amongst the founding fathers of republics. We also make some efforts in terms of struggles for the independence of the Republic of Indonesia. National anthem of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya, was written by Ahmadi. His name is W.R. Supratman. Until 2005, there is no significant cases that we have in terms of position of the others Muslims, conservatives. But the regimes of intolerance, the regimes of violence that we faced raised within last 10 years. So let me give information, just some highlights. First, there is still refugees for their countries. I'm talking about Ahmadis in Mataram, Lombok. In 2006, many Ahmadis moved out from their village, and until right now, 8 years, they are live in the camp. And the problem is not solved yet until right now. Second, some of local governments didn't give the Ahmadis ID cards. Because what? Because they didn't want to put in our religion is Islam in religion column in its ID cards. Third, the government official refused to some of Ahmadis take into merit in official governments, unless they have to change their faith. They have to make some statement, oh, they are back to Muslim again and take into Shahadat. Whether, although we are Shahadat the same, Shahadat is like a decree. And fourth thing is within 10 years, 50 mosques and other properties was burnt, some of our mosques was closed by the governments. So there is no freedom of worship with Ahmadi faith. This is some information that I have to add here. We hope in the next futures, I mean in the next for the next coming governments, coming president, we have already get to put the hope that we are all, whether Ahmadi, Shi'a, or some minorities, Christians, have a future, the bright living in the futures. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mahmoud Mubarak Ahmad, and our next speaker is Ahmad Hidayat. The floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua.
I will translate even though I not speak English very well. So he say greetings to all of you.
Indonesia adalah sebuah negara yang sangat toleran, dibangun dengan budaya yang plural dan menghargai perbedaan.
Indonesia is very well known with tolerance, and we are sharing our diversity very long time ago.
Kekayaan budaya inilah yang disimpulkan di dalam dasar negara Indonesia, yaitu Pancasila.
We formulate our diversity and our reach of our history with the principles of Pancasila.
Di Indonesia beragam agama dan budaya termasuk sekte di dalam kehidupan beragama. Di antaranya adalah masyarakat Muslim Syiah.
There is also too many sects between religion exist in Indonesia. One of that is Shi'a community.
Masyarakat Muslim Syiah itu hadir bersamaan dengan masuknya Islam ke Indonesia pertama kali.
Shia first came to Indonesia same time with Islam also established in Indonesia.
Dan sepanjang sejarah kehidupan beragama itu, kehidupan beragama di Indonesia selalu dalam keadaan damai.
And as when they enter here until the moment actually there's no problem with the Shia community.
Awal munculnya kebencian terhadap Syiah itu dimulai tahun 1997 ketika ada seminar tentang kesesatan Syiah di Masjid Istiqlal, Jakarta.
There is a moment he mentioned in 1997 there is seminars in big mosque in Jakarta. The seminars is bring hate to Shia community.
Eskalasinya kemudian berkembang terus-menerus tanpa ada upaya regulasi untuk menertibkan kehidupan beragama yang terjadi.
And after that, there's too many increasingly intolerant violence to Shia community, and there is no serious action from the government to take care of this issue.
Akibatnya adalah pada Desember 2011 dan berpuncak pada Agustus 2012 ada aksi pembakaran, perusakan, dan berakibat pengusiran warga Muslim Syiah yang ada di Sampang, Madura, Jawa Timur.
The escalation became more worse in December 2011 and August 2012. There is a violence to Shia community in Sampang where they displaced from their village.
Selama 19 bulan sejak Agustus 2012, kami melakukan upaya-upaya konstitusional dengan berdiskusi, berkomunikasi dengan pemerintah daerah, gubernur, bahkan sampai kepada presiden dan parlemen.
Since 80 months already passed, the Shia community become refugee in their own country. Actually, we are use the constitutional way to get the solution. Have a discuss with the local mayor, governor, minister, and also including our presidents.
Kami 2 kali berjumpa dengan presiden dan presiden begitu apresiatif, bahkan menjanjikan untuk menyelesaikan proses rekonsiliasi di antara Muslim, Syiah, dan para kaum intoleran.
We have already met the president 2 times, and he have a passion to reconcile Shia community and the rest of the Muslim communities there.
Tapi janji presiden ini tidak pernah berhasil dilakukan hingga sekarang ini, disebabkan karena desakan kaum intoleran ini begitu kuat untuk mempressure kebijakan pemerintah.
But the promise is still promise, because in my opinion, he mentioned that the president is very influenced by intolerant group.
Masyarakat Muslim Syiah di Sampang yang rumahnya terbakar, hampir 70 rumah, pesantren mereka terbakar, dan kurang lebih 300 yang berada di pengungsian. Mereka anak-anaknya tidak bisa sekolah, perempuan tidak mendapatkan pelayanan yang baik, dan bahkan Ustadz Tajul Muluk yang rumahnya terbakar itu dipenjara 4 tahun, sementara para pelaku kerusuhan kaum intoleran ini bebas tanpa tersentuh.
The Shia community in Sampang is lost their property, and the child cannot get their education. And one of local Shia leader called Tajul Muluk is also bring to the jail for 4 years, but the rest of persecutor is not bring to the jail up to now.
Tentu problem ini adalah karena ada beberapa hal. Pertama, problem kepemimpinan di Indonesia. Yang kedua, perlindungan terhadap kaum minoritas, dan yang ketiga, penegakan hukum.
All this problem, I think, is very influenced by the weak of leadership and the protection for.
And then our next speaker is Mr. Farid Ahmad.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, thank you for giving the opportunity to say a few words. You've heard a lot from the delegates here, from the delegation from Indonesia, and I just wanted to explain that why we are concerned about the situation in Indonesia. First of all, just to make clear that we think Indonesia has a very good track record and a very proud and rich heritage of pluralism. Our concern is from the issues that have been raised by the delegates today, that rich heritage and tradition is under threat. As a community, we see these issues not as isolated or as insignificant, but as part of a pattern. And as a community, we've seen this pattern before and are concerned about where this is leading to. It's a pattern of intolerance where there's opportunism by local groups, perhaps seeking power, perhaps seeking to reassert their power, and that is at a local and national level. And this is then exploited by other players who come in, players possibly from Saudi Arabia, as you have heard, or other sources. And what this has as an effect on the country is that it starts to result in acts of violence, in acts of discrimination, whether it's churches being closed down or being refused permission in Bogor, whether it's the Shia Muslim community in Sampang or the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Shikusik. These are acts that start to erode the rights, the civil rights that Indonesian citizens have in their own country, resulting in closures of mosques and churches, and even to the extent of refugees within their own country. Beyond that, you see the encroachment of civil rights, where ID cards, the right to marry, the right to a proper education also start to become eroded, following this same pattern. That is our concern, that this then becomes part of the mainstream in the country, it becomes acceptable, it becomes the norm, and to turn back from that becomes ever more difficult. So this is our concern, that these issues are not to do with Christians, Ahmadi Muslims or Shia Muslims alone, but actually are to do with the very heart and soul of Indonesia and the future of the country. and we ask international institutions to question why this is acceptable in the current world and what can be done, what action can be taken to stop this. Because in a globalized world, what happens in Indonesia will inevitably impact in other countries. We've seen in the case in Pakistan, where the country has gone down a very slippery slope, and that is creating a headache for the world. Our concern and our prayers for Indonesia are that it should not follow that pattern. I think, and I welcome Ben Rogers' report, it's very timely, it's a good piece of research, and timely because it's not too late for Indonesia at all. It is at a crossroads and a time where action can be taken to put the country back on track, to return to the vision of its founding fathers and founding principles, Pancasila. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farid Ahmad, and then our next speaker is His Excellency Mr. Arif Hawas Organization, Ambassador of Indonesia. Yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me first of all thank you for inviting me to speak at this event. And I would like to acknowledge also the presence of Professor Dr. Thomas Kermaker, the Director of International Institute for Religious Freedom from Bonn, Germany. Mr. Chairman, I want to be as open and as frank as possible in order to go into a very much better informed analysis on what happened to Indonesia. Well, typically, reports in presenting interreligious relations in Indonesia, in my point of view, contain three strategic deficiencies that often led to wrong conclusion, and the conclusion that pluralism in Indonesia is in peril. So let me elaborate that and later on conclude on the importance for Indonesia and EU globally to work together in issues of interreligious matters. Those three strategic deficiencies are, number one, omission of comprehensive facts, omission of historical facts, and omission of comparative analysis. The first one, in accordance with the latest data from the Indonesian Ministry of Religious Affairs, we have approximately 71,200 churches in Indonesia. There are about 60,200 Protestant churches and about 11,000 Catholic churches, where if you look at the growth from 97 to 2012, it was amazing. It was 280% growth. So it is an incredible number that you need to also put in any attempt to analyze the general trend of interreligious life in Indonesia. So when the report claimed that there are 23 Indonesian church cases, it doesn't mean that all 71,200 Indonesian churches or 23.5 million Christians are in danger or are in peril. It should also be understood that there are still 71,177 churches living in harmony in the largest Muslim country in the world. And this is a record in itself. There is also another omissions that normally come up in this type of reporting. Actually there are, as far as my data is concerned, there are 24 requests to construct mosques, not Ahmadiyya, just a normal mosque, in Indonesia that are not granted. So this shows that Indonesia is not having policy of favoring one religion over another religion. And we, as the largest Muslim country in the world, we are basically, probably is the only country in the world that celebrates all holidays of different religions. Islam, Catholics, Protestant, Hindu, Buddhism, and Confucianism. I just discussed with Pastor Benny. He said in the media on the 26th of December that he was very happy to see all the young Muslims participating in Christmas in churches. He said it in the media in Indonesia and Kompas. And the editorial of Kompas of 26th December also basically said that we are still a very strong pluralistic country. Now, the second one is omission of some important historical facts. Many reports, including CSW's report, actually failed to present a very basic fact that phenomenon of radical groups in Indonesia is not new. If you look at our history since our independence, In the 40s, there are a number of radicals who wanted to create an Islamic state. There were radicals on the right, there were radicals on the left. And then later on, if you remember, we have a very bad situations of Bali bombing, series of Bali bombing actually, but we never turned into a fundamentalist country. Indonesia remains multicultural and pluralistic in spite of those incidents of radicalism in the span of over 60 years.
Next, we're going to have the opportunity to exchange of wheels, and I think that might be after this interesting presentations, you have something in your mind, and I hope that we can try to keep the questions quite short and also the answer quite short, and you can say if you have a question for just some particular person who you can do focus for your question. Okay, there's some already. We can start it there, maybe first.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I am Christian. I have studied physics and informatics, and I'm a European citizen. And I have some question for Mr. Ambassador. I think that their comparison between Indonesia and EU is bad. It has nothing to do. We are Christian basis and you are Muslim basis. But for me, Indonesia, and it's a manipulation, huh? So you don't answer to your error, you put our error before. But if somebody asks me, hey, can you give me an example from an Islamic country and democratic, I will say Indonesia. That is for me the example for democratic Islam country. My question to you is, what has doing your government to radicalize the radicals Islamists? I don't speak about fatwa. I don't speak about prison, because fatwa, there are a lot, nobody care about that. So not prison, not fatwa. What are you doing for this? You have a minister for religion, is most Islamic. What are you doing? Another thing about Ahmadiyya, a Muslim minority. I have a great respect for this minority because they are doing a non-violent Islam, and I think that you don't need to persecute them. You need to take them an example. They are persecuted in Pakistan, they are persecuted in Indonesia, and I don't understand why, because they are doing a non-violent Islam. So.
Chairperson, I would like to address His Excellency, the Ambassador. I would like to say that there is no complacency in comparing Indonesia with other countries or the global situation. We cannot accept that if there is intolerance and lack of respect for religions in other parts of the world, we should tolerate it in Indonesia as well. We should not. And Your Excellency, you know very well that right in 1984, the fatwa was passed against Ahmadis, declaring them apostates, deserving to be killed. And that process was again renewed by the clergy in 2005. But the worst thing was that in 2008, the Council of Ministers passed a resolution that the Ahmadis are deviant sect. This is the government. This is not the clergy, not the mullahs. This is the government passing this decree. What sort of religious tolerance is there? And what sort of religious rights are there? And then again, Your Excellency, in September 2010, your Minister for Religion, he called for Ahmadiyya Muslims to be banned in Indonesia. And all these verdicts against Ahmadis stand till today. And as a result of these verdicts by the government, since 2008, there have been over 100 cases of violence against Indonesian Ahmadis. And you know it very well, that in 2005, the main headquarters of the Ahmadiyas in Jakarta was actually invaded, and thousands of people, went into it, and it is still sealed. It is still sealed. And there are scores of other mosques of Ahmadis in Indonesia which are sealed today. And lots of properties of Ahmadiyas have been burned down. Ahmadis are not allowed to construct anything, no mosque, no building. They are not allowed to worship. Leave aside the buildings, they are not allowed to worship. There are bans upon Ahmadis, they cannot offer their Friday prayers, they cannot offer their prayers. So what I'm saying, Your Excellency, this is not accusing, these are the facts on the ground. And we would very much like that the government of Indonesia takes notice of these, because the government is directly involved in this. And may I put to you, Your Excellency, that state and Sharia have their own particular prescriptive roles to play in a society. If the two are messed up, people do not know which is supreme, whether it is the civic law or whether it is the Sharia law, then problems arise. And we are facing those problems in Indonesia, and I hope and pray that the government, the new government coming in later this year, will take heed and try to address these issues sincerely and soberly, and try to bring Indonesia back to its origins. And that course of pluralism and multiculturalism and multi-religious society which Indonesia was back at the time of its independence. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. And now I think that we try to give short answers, even though it might be not very easy, and for the all panelists you can give a little comment, and then we take the second round of the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I think back in 1944, the founding fathers was having a discussion on what is the Indonesian basic of principles should look like. We are divided into two. One that say Indonesia is a country based on one God, and the other one would say Indonesia is a country based on one God, comma, for the Muslims, they need to apply Sharia law. This is 1944. Okay. After a long debate, we decided to remove the phrase for Muslims need to apply Sharia law. So Indonesia was only agreed by the founding fathers as a country that believe in one God. Full stop. Okay. So that came into our constitutions. So in 2002, when we get rid of the authoritarian government, there was a debate again in the parliament on this issue. The argument was that, well, in 1944, we were in an emergency situation, we want to declare a country, so maybe people don't think that totally they want to do it again. So we did it again in 2002, but the parliament and the public overwhelmingly agreed to maintain as it is. So we are not applying Sharia law. It is the European Union that actually pushed us to accept Sharia law in Aceh. So you need to do some more study on this. In your study, Ben, is not included. In my study in European Union, is not included. That actually was you who knew exactly what it is, sign on, implement, boom, you got it today. So that's one thing. Now secondly, de-radicalizations. We have a number of radicalized problems. The violent one is, you remember the Aceh bombing. This is very bad for us. Sorry, the Bali bombing, 2002, another bombing coming in, and another bombing coming again in Jakarta. So we tried to engage the moderate Islamic leaders. We had a discussion with ulama from Nahdlatul Ulama, and we have Muhammadiyah, They would go to the pockets of the radicals and they would use theology as an alternative view to moderate the situations, and also to give them a different opinion, different alternatives on what is the interpretation of Quran is about. Now, we have also done the radicalization process in the jail, in the prisons, because they are in the prisons, and we don't want them to spread the different interpretation of Islam according to them. So we are now bringing ulama to the prisons in different parts of Indonesia where they have the terrorists in the cell. So I think there's a very clear policy on that, and we want to continue to do that. And as a matter of fact, it's quite successful. Today, if you see a terrorist attack in Indonesia, they are not attacking anymore malls or cafe. Normally they attack the police office stations. It goes with the salary, so it should be fine. But we will work even more on that. Okay? I think we actually invite Shi'a Ahmadiyah from Indonesia to come, but because there are 2 Ahmadiyah groups in Indonesia, and we actually hope to have the Shi'a Ahmadiyah instead of, in addition to Jaringan Media, to also have a discussion with it, but he will not come. But hopefully one of these days we can bring everybody together from Ahmadiyah Indonesia and to give a better explanation of what's going on. I did not mean to attack situation in EU, no. I did not mean to justify. Just mean trying to say that if you want to have a comprehensive analysis of Indonesia, you have to do those 3. You have to include all the facts. You have to include historical facts that radicals are in Indonesia since before independence. You still have it today. It's a journey in trying to maintain multiculturalism and pluralism. And I think it's important to look at the other countries' performance, because people also do the ranking system. Ranking system of Freedom House ranking system, which one is open, which is closed. There's also a comparison. And I think it's important to have a comparison to give you a wider picture how things can be developed in the future. That will also give us an element of possible cooperations on this issue.
Okay, and then, but we go into that way, so.
जो दुनिया में मजहबी आज़ादी है वो इस तरह के प्रोग्राम करने से उसका फ़र्क पड़ेगा कुछ?
ये जो प्रोग्राम है ना, इनसे जो हक की आवाज़ है ना, उसको बुलंद करने का मकसद होता है। जब हम ऐसी मीटिंग्स में शामिल होते हैं तो हमारा मकसद ये होता है कि जो सही बात है वो हम पेश करें ताकि लोग उसको सुने। और सुनने वालों में बहुत सारे लीडर होते हैं, मुख्तलिफ़ इदारों के, मुख्तलिफ़ मज़ाहिब के, हुकूमत के, जो आलमी इदारे हैं उनके लीडर होते हैं। और जब वो एक सही बात सुनते हैं तो उनके वो ज़हन नशीन हो जाती है, और फिर आगे जहाँ कहीं मौका होता है वो बात फिर आगे चलती है। तो इस तरह जब आहिस्ता आहिस्ता वो बात आगे बढ़ेगी तो उससे फिर उम्मीद की जा सकती है कि कभी उसका जो नतीजा है वो भी ज़ाहिर होगा। लेकिन मुश्किल ये है कि आजकल की जो दुनिया है उसमें मादियत और सियासत जो है वो बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गई है, और लोग जो हैं वो ज़्यादा मादी सोच रखते हैं या सियासी सोच रखते हैं, और इससे उनको जो अपने उनके मफादात होते हैं उनकी तरफ ज़्यादा तवज्जो होती है बनिस्बत उन बातों के जो दुनिया के लिए बेहतर हैं, इंसानियत के लिए बेहतर हैं, जो दुनिया में अमन कायम कर सकती हैं, रवादारी कायम कर सकती हैं। तो ये जो चीज़ें हैं इनके लिए कोशिश जो है वो बदस्तूर जारी रहनी चाहिए, और ऐसी जो मीटिंग्स हैं जहाँ भी मौका हो वहाँ पे हाज़िर होके तो हमारा जो बहसी जमात अहमदिया या मुसलमान होने के जो हमारा मौक़िफ़ है उसको पेश करना चाहिए।
जमात अहमदिया का जो किरदार है मजहबी आज़ादी के हवाले से वो दुनिया में कैसा है, और इस्लाम में मजहबी आज़ादी के मतलब क्या हुक्म है?
मजहबी आज़ादी के लिहाज से तो जैसे कि आपको इल्म है कि कुरान मजीद हमें बड़ी बुनियादी सी तालीम देता है, और वो ये है कि ला इकराहा फिद्दीन है, कि दीन में कोई जबर नहीं है। किसी शख्स का कोई भी दीन हो, उसका कैसा भी मज़हब हो, उसको मुकम्मल आज़ादी है कि वो अपने दीन के लिहाज से, अपने मज़हब के लिहाज से उस पर कारबंद रहें। जहाँ तक इस्लाम का ताल्लुक़ है तो इस्लाम ने मुकम्मल मजहबी आज़ादी दी है, और हज़रत सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के अगर दौर को भी हम देखें तो उसमें भी हज़रत सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने कभी भी किसी शख्स को दीन के डिफरेंस होने के लिहाज से कभी भी उसे ना कोई सज़ा दी है, ना ही उस पर कोई परसिक्यूशन की है, ना ही उसके मुताल्लिक कोई एक्शन लिया है।
हमारा तो एक ईमान है कि फ़ज़क्किर, यानी कि तुम कहते चले जाओ, और फिर एक वक्त आता है कि जब अल्लाह ताला ज़रूर उस ज़हन जो है वो बदल देता है। तो इस लिहाज से हम समझते हैं कि हमारा काम यह है कि दुनिया को जो हकीकत है उससे आगाह करते चले जाएं, और ये भी एक प्लेटफॉर्म है, इस तरह से भी आगाह कर रहे हैं। बाकी भी और तरीके हैं जिनके ज़रिए से हम बता रहे हैं कि क्या दुरुस्त है, क्या गलत है।
I think these programs are important because they remind countries of their obligations, both internally from their own laws and also under international law, that they have a duty to protect their citizens and to promote the rights of all within their country. We don't expect change to happen overnight, but we do hope that this message reaches Jakarta and is a part of the debate that leads to change. Indonesia, the problems of freedom of religion affect different communities. In particular, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community has a problem where they have been targeted by a joint ministerial decree that calls for Ahmadis effectively to be banned. It calls them a deviant sect of Islam, and therefore they should not be allowed to propagate Islam, propagate their faith, to have activities in the country. And the issue is that this decree, together with the fatwa of the Majlis Ulama, is used to actually ban the community locally. So if you look across Indonesia, you heard today that in more than 20 provinces, the Ahmadiyya community is banned. Their mosques are sealed, the people have been murdered, and houses burnt, mosques burnt. This is a real issue, and the government of Indonesia needs to take this issue seriously and provide protection for all its citizens. Now what we're seeing is that those same problems are affecting Christians, other groups, other Muslims. So it's an issue that will destroy ultimately Indonesia. It's important to acknowledge that Indonesia has a proud record of multiculturalism, a good history of pluralism, but that history and tradition is being challenged by the radical extremists within the country who will exploit it for their own good and for the downfall of Indonesia if it's not stopped.
I'm from Jemaat Ahmadiyya Indonesia, Ahmadiyya Community Indonesia. I'm a secretary of Shi'a in Majlis Amla Nasional. So I invited to this meeting, in the European Parliament meeting. It's a great experiences to encourage members of parliaments that something happens in Indonesia in terms of pluralisms, that we are Ahmadiyya, also Shi'i, and some of our brothers and Christians.
We have done a program like this to my date, to my knowledge. We have conducted something around 12 programs in the last 3 years, and I was here. And the last one was a program of photo exhibition of interreligious affairs. I think it's very important also because we in Indonesia, a young democracy, we learn to maintain multiculturalism and pluralism in a democratic way, and the challenges are probably the same with here in Europe, where you also have challenges of pluralism and multiculturalism. It's important indeed. President twice. So it's only twice someone can become a president. We have the same system like the Americans. So for sure, under Indonesian constitution, someone cannot stay in power more than.
It's very important to raise awareness of the situation in different countries all around the world, because freedom of religion is one main principle for the European Union. You know, freedom express. And we would like to promote democracy, human rights, freedom express, freedom religions, and that's the reason why we organize this seminar. It's very important to send this message. The European Parliament is based in Brussels, and that's the reason why we organize the seminars here. Of course, time to time we visited in the different countries, and some advocates visit in the different country, and we try to promote these values which are important for us. As I say, freedom of religion is one core value of the European Union, and that's the reason why we organize that kind of seminars and try to take care of some countries. Like today we had Indonesia.
My hope, we believe in freedom of religion or belief for all people, of all religions and of no religion, and the idea of this kind of event is to promote that value specifically today for the people of Indonesia, but of course that value is universal, so we hope the effect will be worldwide. Throughout the world, all three communities that you've mentioned, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, the Shia community and Christians, and of course people of other religions as well, face increasing persecution and discrimination, religious intolerance. In Indonesia specifically, Ahmadis have suffered particularly severe persecution. I've met Ahmadi victims of violent attacks in places like Cikesik, where several people were killed. I met survivors of that attack, and their stories are detailed in my new report on Indonesia, and they suffered terrible violence. I visited Ahmadi homes in different parts of Indonesia that have been burnt down. The Shia community also in Indonesia, some of their villages have been attacked, homes burnt down, and they are displaced, living in a temporary shelter without being able to go back to their own homes. And Christians' churches have been closed, some Christians have been attacked, and the climate in Indonesia for Ahmadis, Shia, Christians and others is becoming increasingly intolerant and difficult.